name is Sasha Volgina. I work for a global network of people living with HIV, and indeed, I have quite a lot of experience. But I'm not sure you people also should have quite a lot. We all are working in advocacy, so we all do understand, how much data is important for both for advocacy and for fundraising. Maybe a bit of, just to start, maybe with a bit of conversation. So um, maybe what is in your understanding, like the data is important for our work for what? Like um, what do you think? What is your perspective on that? Any ideas? Good morning. Mm. Just go ahead, raise your hand, and because I don't see the hands, by the way. Anyone?
Sorry, what was the question again?
So what is important about data? Why it's important for our work for activists? Marinella, yeah, I see the hand. Go ahead.
Hello, good morning from
Good
Athens,
morning.
Greece. When you have technocrats in the table, it is interesting to know what you're talking about in terms of evidence and in terms of data that can help them understand what you are asking in terms of economy, in terms of cost saving. For example, this is one example of using data in advocacy.
Yeah, very good example. We'll talk about that one today for sure. Yeah, so basically, uh, we are using data for what? For achieving the change, right? I can't somehow go. Oh, next slide. Yeah. So yeah, indeed, that like showing the case of, for example, this cost effectiveness is one of the ways how we can use the data. The important thing to say here is, as a community-led organizations, as a civil society organizations, we are not scientific institutions, right? So for us, data is, we're not collecting data for science, right? The main thing which we have to bear in mind all the time is that we are collecting data for change. So we need some, um, uh, I started working, a lot with data in 2004, 5 or so, right? And the first main mistakes were, we were collecting absolutely everything about everything. And then at some point we were realizing we don't have enough capacity then to advocate for that. It was so exciting, to work with the universities and to collect all of that. And then once we collected the data about the access to treatment to tuberculosis, hepatitis, and HIV. And the only capacity then to advocate was to advocate around the stockouts of IRVs, and that's it. And then all the rest of the data, it just sits in the report on your bookshelf, right? And then you are not using that. So that's important to bear in mind. We are using data for change. Yeah, right. That's what we have to bear in mind. So what it can be. Indeed, very good example, about like kind of budget advocacy, right? And it can be a local level, it can be a national level. There's a whole, the whole area, I can say, the budget advocacy, right? Special programs, so showing data to get investment and support. Um, from my region, from like the post-Soviet countries, that we have quite a lot of good examples, like on a local level, on municipal level, on national level as well, when we were getting the investment. So also it can be some denied things. So it can be stockouts, as I said, right? So they are denied. And so first, when we started to work with the government was literally saying there's no stockouts. We as activists were saying there are stockouts. So and then we started to collect. We organized a website, Перебой, which is a stockouts in Russian. Yeah, and we started to collect that data. Now this data is collected through all of the whole region. So it's all about, like opposing the view of the government. It can be about the pharma or access mechanisms. So I will go into details a bit later, but there was very recently there was DTG 10 years celebration, but the data from communities from Kazakhstan and Belarus was not so celebrative, let's put it like that. So we bring it to the table. We will talk also about why we do that. There's a new license. We'll also talk about that today on Lena Kapavir and all the countries of my, let's say my region is included, but all Europe is excluded. So one of the ideas when I looked at the data you have in the COBATEST is around that. Then we also can use data for political change. So it's like decriminalization of HIV or other changes, so it's some political changes. So you can compare countries that decriminalize HIV, decriminalize HIV, their testing rates, with the countries that criminalize as a part of the argument, for example. So it can be also a system change. You can see on the slide is one of my favorite examples. So it's very important in advocacy to ask the right question. It's a story about this defibrillation machines, right? Which is now it's a part of just environment, right? They're hanging everywhere on every station, in every shop, whatever. So, but it wasn't like that always. So there was a whole story about it. Um, People were dying, obviously, out of heart attacks. And what is the right question here to put? Like, what we want to do? We want people. We want to save people. If we want to save people, and that's how the people were doing that previously, we should invest into the institutions that are saving them, and this is hospitals. And all the money will go into hospitals, but then the right question was asked. We don't want people to die. So that was the right question, because then looking into the data where people are dying out of heart attacks, it finds out that people are not dying inside the hospitals. People are dying on the streets, absolutely outside the hospital. So investment went at the end of the day to these, defibrillation machines, which are now just part of our normal life, right? We have great programs, but it wasn't like that. So always, try to ask the right question. What it is you want to change. Like we're using advocacy for a change, what it is we want to change, in what numbers basically we need to look. Yeah, because if we look in how many people we have saved, previously before the use of these machines, it was, how many basically managed to get to the hospital and we saved them there. And then people were constantly investing. Of course, the machines were expensive, but then, like making the calculations of cost effectiveness, it find out that indeed the way to save lives is to spread them around rather than to invest into, better equipment and whatever inside the hospital. So asking the right question is quite a thing. And we already started to talk about the budget advocacy. And of course, it's a donors, international, national, big, small, private. So we draw attention and we bring trends, and we show the problem and we show the solution, and that's also quite an important part. People, if you have any questions, you just jump in, okay? Though I can't see the hands. No hands by now. So can you, if you will see the hands, just
Yeah.
Same,
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. I will mention if the hands. I
Great.
will.
So like opposing messages. So like ignoring the problem, as I said, with stockouts, for example. Their stockouts is a usual thing which happen with people living HIV all the time. So it's like India is a one huge stockout, Russia is the one huge stockout. It's also, quite a lot of other countries. So all that, started as a part of, trying to stop that in the one countries, and now it's a part of the whole advocacy mechanism. And I can say also that the pharma and ministries of health, like across the whole region, are actually using the numbers from there, are actually referring to that number. So it became the whole advocacy resource and instrument, I can say. So, like for example, also like there were refugees camps in Netherlands, and there were 5 suicides during the last year of the Russian-speaking LGBT asylum seekers here. So, but the monitoring system which is established in the camps is showing everything is okay. That's how the monitoring system is done. So we need to make the same, the alternative mechanisms of reporting of what is really done. So we need the other monitoring system to be established. That's what I'm working, this is my hobby. That's what we're trying to do now in Netherlands. Or for example, wonderful country, Russia is saying that they are testing 2 million of people for HIV, and then um, you differentiate the numbers and it gives understanding. You disaggregate them, who are these people, that basically it's the wrong people whom they are testing. So they're bringing that to international bodies, like they are doing great, and then you're opposing them saying like, well, but wait a second. Or correcting the message. The last webinar was absolutely great. I really enjoyed that. In Cyprus, instead of missing 4%, it finds out that it's 17%. Let's stop on that example a bit more. So yeah, they're showing, the government is showing progress toward 95, 95, 95. I was really very impressed with the example from the last webinar, honestly. So yeah, according to their calculations, it's 4, but then they're missing 17. So and what Christoph was saying, like put that on the table, give them time, like asking a question, like, do you think we will get somewhere with that numbers, right? Um, so, uh, but then going further, we want to change, right? We want these people to be reached. So, what needs to happen to reach them? What are the interventions? Then we have to ask, who are these people? So we can, like with data from testing you have, you basically can come up with some solutions, make this analysis, make these suggestions to your government, um, and then also, Christoph was saying there is no sexual education, right? Uh, Always check your capacity. My main advice is, are you able to really, change that in the country by now? Of course, you always have to push for that, but, is it possible by now? Or is it, the push which should be done? But then you also should ask, I don't know, maybe looking into the data, you see that there are a lot of people that you can make some focused interventions, to improve the situation while you are advocating for something bigger, for like comprehensive sexual education in school. So um, that's quite a, like you always doing advocacy, you always have to balance and have to see what is the change which will happen soon. What is the change you can do now? What to push and how to use strategically data for that. Um, and the other example I was going, also, if you have questions and you also wanna, talk, please do. um, the other example is DTG. So there was this DTG celebration medicine patent pool and the pharmaceutical company Viv were celebrating the like, full access for everyone, which was not accurate because there was a special agreement for the middle income countries, and Kazakhstan and Belarus were part of that agreement. And yeah, and they really gained the access very late on the very high prices. So it wasn't like we as an activist, we can't name it a good access. So we have done a noise. We have done it before the also pretty strategically before the AIDS conference in Munich, and then during the conference. So basically, what we were doing, we were spoiling the celebration, not making it so celebrative. And what happened after that, and we were bearing that in mind because the license for the new era of the treatment, which is injectables, who are coming to our lives now, or we knew that on the table is the license with the Gilead will be doing that, looking at us being so noisy and so yeah, inconvenient, Gilead just included all the countries of Eastern Europe and Central Asia into the agreement, not to have troubles with these noisy activists. Like just let's include them, Otherwise, they are spoiling everything. They're making some scandals. Like, ugh, yeah, let's do that. And then that was exactly the aim, right? So basically, otherwise, why we should take that story of DTG is already what happened. What happened is already happened, right? The access was slow. The prices were bad. The agreement was bad. Why to bring that story back? Yeah, why to use that data? Why to quarrel with medicine patent pool around the data accuracy? uh, all that is because there was a next thing on the table, and we wanted it to be differently. Let's stop here because I saw, guys, that you have in your data that you have prep section, right? So basically you have quite a lot of capacity because you are collecting the data about prep. uh, Lenapakavir is not a trouble. The prices is not a trouble, of course, for the North Europe. Yeah, but when it comes to South, especially well, the countries which are not rich, let's say, yeah, Balkan countries, like those who are really, and also we have to bear in mind that when the country is small, the prices also will be quite high. So all the countries are excluded. No generics is going to come, right? And lenacapavir is of course great for PrEP, right? So uh, what you can do? What you can do, having your data in this PrEP block, you can show and check the numbers about the demand. You can show the access. You will need additional monitoring, of course, of prices, but then with that amount, yeah, and with that numbers, you can try to make some advocacy around that. Basically, for this license, almost the whole Latin America is excluded. As I said, my region is included. Uh, in Africa, Algeria somehow very strange, they are excluded. And of course, also the main trouble I see as an access treatment access person is, of course, the European countries, small and not rich, right? For whom the prices which Gilead will be given for the brand product will be unreachable. Yeah, and then what we're gonna do. So you have quite a net capacity. Also, if you want to work on that together, more than welcome. We will have a webinar, JNP Plus together with the TPC and with the Unitate delegation, community delegation for Unitate board. We'll have a webinar on the 26th of November at 3 set. I can then later send you some information. It will be the basic about, like what are the injectables about, but we're gonna do more and more advocacy around that. And I think, European countries who won't have such an easy access to the product can be, you know, and also you have data, you can gather the data, you can get the numbers. Also, there is quite a lot of now going on around the diagnostics cost monitoring, because previously we've been, you know, in the treatment access, we've been looking mostly on the treatment. Now we're also looking quite a lot on diagnostics, and for the test systems themselves are the prices are rather high, and there's also quite a lot can be done, you know, around that. Also, if that's in your interest, let's work together. I know ITPC, ECA is working a lot on around the diagnostics, and now it's like growing trend. Let's put it like that. Yeah, we're not only focused mm, on treatment, but also on diagnostics. Let me know if you are interested. Uh, any questions, clarifications, suggestions? Not yet. Okay.
Looks like everything is clear.
Good. So then the very interesting part, using data to achieve political change. So um, again, on that slide, you can see a lot of arguments which people are using, you know, to support the criminalization. And then you can see, you know, what kind of data you can use to oppose that. Again and again and again, when you are advocating, um, my advice and my experiences, don't try to, you know, to do all of that, right? So for example, you have data, yeah, you have like, what are the usual arguments? Politicians, Ministry of Justice, who else is usually pushing for, or sometimes, unfortunately, Ministry of Health, those who are pushing for HIV criminalization, which is quite a problem, of course, for Eastern Europe and Central Asia, which is a problem. Well, unfortunately, Poland suddenly during COVID criminalized HIV. Everyone was shocked, you know. And I think the sentence is 7 years or something like that. So, like, usual arguments from the supporters are the same. So we have to imprison people in HIV, otherwise they're spreading the infection, and they have to be. It will improve their behavior. So you easily can get the numbers which are showing that punishment is not. Mm, Improving anyone's behavior. And also you can easily show that if you want to stop an epidemic, basically putting people in prison is the worst strategy you can do. Yeah, because there's no prevention in prisons, and there's a lot of risk practices. So basically, for transmitting HIV further, it's you know, worst thing you can do. Or for example, yeah, this is important for prevention, you know, like it will stop the epidemic and all of that. So also you have a lot of data, you can find it for your own country, you know, um, you can look into, or you can use also the world data, right, showing that, well, there are cases of transmission, but they usually occur when the period is when the people don't know their HIV status. But so what is the outcome of that? People better know about HIV status, right? But will they come to the testing points, or will they come to the doctors if they are afraid to get into prison? If they are afraid to, yeah, for being for getting criminal liability for being HIV positive? Probably not. And of course, one of the best, you know, arguments from the people who support criminalization and the governmental structures is, of course, protecting women. So that was one of our, I can say, brilliant arguments. We checked across the region who are the people who are getting in prison. So guess who are they? They are women, of course. The medical system and everything is, well, basically we can get pregnant. That's the thing. So that's why we have regular, you know, like checkups, and that's why women usually know their status more frequently rather than men. And then as soon as you know yeah, then you are done basically. If you know your status, then you can be prosecuted, investigated, and then put into prison. Also, women can't really protect themselves, so it's also it's growing. Criminalization is also growing the violence towards women. So it's a lot. It's a whole complex of but you can really prove with the numbers that if you want to protect women, that's the worst thing you can do is the criminalization of HIV. So this is, also like how you can use the data for building an argument, building an in the society, in the community, to building a conversation. Building a systematic change. That's my favorite thing, honestly. That's I love, that defibrillation machines and the things like that. So basically, you look into what is going on, you find what you have to improve and where you have to put the investment, so that then strategically you will have the best results out of it. Small investment, best results. Small investment, best results. So this catalytical way of bringing the change. So when the war, the Russian invasion of Ukraine started, what we saw that our clients need a lot of humanitarian help. Previously, our NGOs, our community-led organizations, NGOs were working only, they were making testing, they were providing, services, they were doing this and that, working with the key populations, but of course they knew nothing about the humanitarian access and humanitarian needs and how to close that need. But then at some point, of course, for people it was much more important, where to sleep or what to eat rather than to take IRVs or get through testing. Which is logical. So we made we made the rapid assessments in June, July about the needs of the clients first. And then we repeated it in 2023, because also you have to check what the trends, what it is people, need. Like in the beginning of the war, it was also quite a lot about evacuation, for example. Then later on, not so much. So we made an analysis report about the people about the organizations. We made interviews with the organizations who were trying to organize this humanitarian support. And also, let me say that across the whole globe, Ukrainian response of HIV towards the humanitarian situation was one of the best. So they really managed to do so. So they were doing great. There was something, to assess and to look into. And then we looked into, of course, like in the beginning of the war, the HIV donors were giving some money, honestly, for humanitarian needs. But then they have their own mandate, right? They have to do things around HIV, not around, humanitarian stuff. So they were slow by slow, leaving that space. But then we were still to maintain the humanitarian services, such as shelters, such as food, such as, everything for the key populations, especially. So we looked into the capacity of the organizations. What needs to happen with organizations? What are the barriers? Why they are not, what do we have to do for them, to be able to receive money from humanitarian situations? And we have done the analysis, and we have, on the basis of that barriers, we have wrote the national plan of building the capacity of organizations. So people were to change their statutes and to add humanitarian services to HIV, but which they were doing previously. The people were to add, policies, to make audits, to just to learn how to apply for humanitarian funding, just to understand the humanitarian mechanism. So we have wrote the plan. We have approved it through CCM. Coordination country mechanism, right? That's and we attracted humanitarian. And we find some money to implement that plan. We got 75K for implementation of that plan, for just growing the capacity of the organization. the amount of money which organizations have then received from the humanitarian sector, being prepared and being able to get money from that sector, was around 3 million. So that's what I named the systematic change. You are not, giving fish to people. You are giving, what is the word in English? Yeah, you are just, you are making them able, to do the things by themselves. You're growing the capacity, and then there is a huge change in the trends. Previously, working only for HIV NGOs and community-led organizations um, were able, to um, yeah, to really broaden their mandate and to broaden the scope of services, and to attract a lot of money. And close the needs of their clients. That's the main thing. Yeah, because what we want to change. We want our people to be in a good condition, in a better condition, let's say like that. So we were using a lot of data. We needed data. We were making rapid assessments. We were making analysis, and then we were providing that, to the structures like CCM. We were providing that to the donors, and that's how we gained the change. Any questions by now? Okay, let me share the bad experience. Not always you have to show the good experience. So we also at some point realized that, of course, the state of mental health in Ukraine is really, this is a very, sad story. Of course, such a long war is, bringing, and also we all do understand that people in HIV or from the key populations will already have more vulnerabilities rather than, like general population. So we wanted to do something. So we tried to apply for the funding from European Commission about the mental health. But what we didn't have any data showing the size of the problem, mostly anecdotal data. And also, we didn't have a good analysis, let's say, of what is exactly going on in our communities. Like we do see that, people are using more drugs. We do see that there is violence growing. We do see that people are really, suffering from PTSD, we knew on which populations we wanted to focus. Men in armed services or veterans, women, people who use drugs. Also, of course, we were thinking about the change. Like for most of us, the worst scenario is that guys were, defending us on the front lines, and then they're coming back to Ukraine. And then Ukraine is a country which is criminalizing drug use quite heavily, let's put it like that. And then where these heroes go, because they are coming back with the PTSD, obviously they start using drugs, and then with the current situation and criminalization, they go to prison. So of course, like we wanted to give the services, we wanted to give the support to people, but we also wanted to gain the political change. But when we were writing the proposal, we didn't have enough, honestly. Yeah, so I do understand why European Commission said, look, well, good idea, guys, but no, you are not prepared. So now we're going, for, we went to the John Hopkins University. It finds out that for them, like, also when you're working with universities, you have to be clear. You want to change, you want services, you want to provide this or that. Universities, they want to make science, but for them, you are also very important person, because not many people, have access to people from the key populations, to veterans, to women living with HIV in the war territories, in Ukraine. Like they also, for them, it's quite a thing to make that kind of science. Yes, Shabi. So there's also a message yeah?
Yes, yes. I actually wanted to say about that message that there is a question in the chat. I can read it out loud.
Yes.
So it says, what can an organization do when data collection itself questions the intentions and strategy of the donors that are most eager to provide funds?
Can you, the person who have asked the question, can you give an example, an exact example? I think I'm getting what it is, like, um, I've been in that situation, for example, like when we were collecting data about the substitutional treatment, how it's organized in Ukraine. And of course, the major investor into that was Global Fund. And then we see the data, and the data is obviously showing that the way they have organized all of that is not a good way. Yeah, but then whom we need to ask is the same Global Fund. This kind of situation, right? Yeah.
In a way, yes. I was thinking another example of the EU, of the Commission, for example, that they provide different kind of funds. They open different kind of funds in order to apply, as it was happened, for example, in the situation of Ukraine that you said earlier.
Yeah.
And in order to avoid further burden in the European hospital systems of each country, and on one side, and on the other side, they impose cuttings of funding through the annual fiscal administration that they urge the country members to provide, and they have a policy that it's exactly the opposite of the core of the fund proposal that they have opened. This is another example, not to enter in the pharmaceutical sector. That is also a different example.
Yeah, absolutely, totally. And I also, like I think for European Commission and for many countries, like the whole now situation with the refugees and with the flood of people, coming to Ukraine is also for us, I think, kind of eye-opening, because what we saw is that the NGOs and the community-led organizations in European countries are not receiving enough funding. Everything is underfunded. And then as soon as the system was to resist something bigger than the usual, right, it wasn't working, so it's also quite a question, where to invest into Ukraine so that people won't come here, or invest here so that the system here can work with the people, is quite I was pretty shocked, with when you live in Eastern Europe and Central Asia, or even as a, like just I already lived here in Netherlands for 5 years, you don't know basically how small and fragile the system of support is, basically, and how small the funding is. Like Poland is one of the big examples for, and I will talk about that today a bit later, that the local NGOs, they don't have any money, and then they have to work, quite a lot of, Marina.
Because this is the biggest conflict in my whole career. That's why I mentioned that, right? When you advocate and you collect fund data, and you see that the intentions of those that they're going to give you money are a contra of what the organization, at least principles at the beginning are. Now, what I have found as a solution.
And you're right, going into pharma as well, is it aligned with our principles to take money from pharma? But at the same time, you have to provide, support to the people on the ground.
Yes, that's why I was thinking that another a kind of solution to this that I have found during all the years that I have been working on the advocacy sector. I have two proposals. One is that the funding that you get as an organization should be variable and not from one source.
Absolutely.
And this is one idea that helped a lot praxis in the past, where we faced a very big turbulence concerning all these advocacy matters. And another proposal that I found very important is that you work in alliances, like GNP Plus, for example, and other alliances, because some organizations are in a position that can advocate in a higher level.
Right.
Higher, not, I don't mean in a higher volume. This is the whole idea. Others not, depending on the situation. But if the goal is the same, and there are networks like Ejection Europe, like GNP Plus, like different networks, even national frame, I think it is easier. You don't low the advocacy volume, you just differentiate, and you don't have one at the front. The EU, for example, or the Commission, they don't have
one resource,
one source in the front. No, they have a big group, and this also breaks a little bit the individual notion that we are used to. Unfortunately, we are used to due to the system that we live in.
Absolutely. I can't agree more. I can't agree more, because like that was exactly what we've been doing, of course, well, let's take the pharmaceutical companies example, an example of Ukraine, because that was exactly, what you are saying. Like, usually we're trying not to take money from pharmaceutical companies, but here's a humanitarian crisis. We need money a lot, like what we're gonna do. So that's exactly what we've been doing. In the budget of GNP Plus, it's not a big amount, right? We have a lot of other sources, right? We can take the money from pharma, we can give them to Ukrainian small organizations, and then we can still do our advocacy around treatment access. We don't care, So we are still, two things you're saying. We are still in that position that we can make that, advocacy. And also the amount of money is not, if it's an organization like, let's take Positive Women Ukraine, if that would be money going directly to them, it is the money going to them at the end of the time, yeah? But they're going through us, not only because of the due diligence and all of that, yeah? Because it's strategically, then they're not receiving directly from the farmer. They are not really dependent on pharma, and and they also, their advocacy is not, damaged with that. Working as a together in alliances, and also not one source of, source of funding. Just you. I was in that position. I was having like a prison project back then in Russia, many years ago. One project, never sustainable, right? Because you're dependent like fully. Or like you always have to need to have a lot of sources, and you always need to find the partnerships and to find the alliances, so that the things you can't say, the other people can say. Great example, thanks a lot. Yeah, that would be really great if somebody will tell me, that, just tell me that 15 years ago. I've spent so much time, in learning that lessons. Mm. Um, so coming back, yeah. So yeah, that's how you fail with the data, and that's then how you come to that. How much time? Because yeah, okay, I will a bit speed up. So also you can combine the things. I will speak now very briefly about the stigma index. So for example, stigma index of people living HIV, it is both. It's about, bringing the change, about the, like, changing the attitudes, like you are making this research, community research, right? But it's also about bringing the money. So basically how it works, like you have stigma index itself, right? You have a lot of questions, about the stigma and discrimination. Maybe some of you have already done it, because quite a lot of European countries have done stigma index. So you are making the research, then you are looking at what are the recommendations around that research. You have evidence for the best interventions. What is the beauty of stigma index for me is that you can look exactly into the numbers. For example, you can look into the workplace settings. You're looking into the workplace settings, and you see that my HIV status was disclosed. All right, was known by the people without my concern. So then you can look who are these people, and then according to that you can make your advocacy interventions, right? So everything can be, you know, very much in line. Or you are looking, for example, in rights literacy. Yeah, what we've been doing previously with the Global Fund, we've been doing like, okay, there's people don't know their rights, people are not fighting for their rights. Let's do the trainings around rights. And we are training already for the fifth time, you know, the same population of people we've been training already already for years. What is good about stigma index? You can look, you can always break down the numbers and see, okay, there's low knowledge about the people's rights exactly in populations of gay men who are young, who are like in their 20s, for example. And then you make the intervention exactly for these people. You are making, you know, capacity building around the rights. You're making this, and this. Otherwise, you will be still, you know, making the rights training for drug users, you know, as you've been doing 5 years ago. So this ability, you know, to look at the data and to see, you know, what exactly are the people who are suffering from this, and from that is quite a thing. What else you can do? You can, yeah. Um, you can also use that for getting money, right? Of course, this is about the countries who have global fund funding. In Europe, we don't have a lot of them, but still, you know, for those who have, so you can, uh, there is clear guidelines, and we tried, you know, to make it very clear on the global level. That was also our advocacy, I mean, from the side of the GNP Plus. So you make the stigma index, then you make your advocacy, then you come up with your interventions, and then you put it on the table when the next grant cycle of Global Fund is coming. And you have all the data, and you have all the, you know, yeah, all the needed information to justify your interventions and to show why the investment should go here, yeah, there, and there. Not saying that it always worked perfectly, but that's how the system was designed and pushed by the communities. Honestly, you know, that's what we've been trying to achieve with that. So there is a, you know, human rights programs, what they have to consist with. There are examples of interventions, and then you are advocating when the grant is being built for the Global Fund. The other examples also working with the donors, right? So what you can do, as I said, you can do the advocate for the priorities through the existing mechanisms, such as and set up the trends. Like one of the sources I'm using is, of course, the PCB NGO delegation, you know, because this is a delegation pretty unique. They can do, for example, reports about things. So we have like the NGO delegation have done a report. One of the last ones was about the humanitarian settings and HIV. And nowadays, you know, there is a new guidelines in development about HIV in emergencies. So you can achieve kind of, you know, new trends, new, you know, kind of change, right? Because you are bringing some issues to the table, you know, or CLM was, you know, really advocated through that kind of mechanisms, community-led monitoring, or, you know, mental health, you know, was advocated and still is. I'm trying to push for that. But we need more data, honestly. So, you know, things like that. You are trying to set up the things you see, which can be, you know, crucial, which can be interesting, and which, you know, which can be the new trends and solutions. You're just bringing it using. It's of course also the NGO delegation of the Global Fund. You know, that's kind of, but this also the, you know, that the same work can be done on the European level, union level. You know, so you are using the mechanisms you have to come up with the issues. The other part, which I find very, uh, very good and very promising, is of course working with a group of donors. So the last, like, since the start of the war in Ukraine, like I'm working a lot with the Eastern Europe and Central Asia funders working group. So there's a group of donors, right? Who have formed, you know, the special working group, and then you are coming there regularly, making presentations, bringing data, bringing, you know, priorities from the communities, it's a constant work, but then, you can enjoy looking into the new call for proposals from Elton John, which is actually taking into account, what you have said. Which is really designed according to what is happening on the ground. So that kind of advocacy is also, you are taking data, bringing that to donors. Donors are the example of Poland. So um, we also can bring just attention to the donors, right? So Elton John wasn't previously working a lot with the Poland, right? And of course, like, well, I got into the, like, well, basically they asked for help. I mean, um, the Poland Ministry of Health, they asked for help. They said they have very bad numbers nowadays because of the humanitarian crisis they have as well. And they have higher rates of HIV positive testing and also in a very advanced stage of HIV. So they were really worried, let's put it like that. So we came together to the Elton John, and now the Elton John representative, he came to the country. He was now meeting with NGOs, so we're just bringing the attention of the donor. But they need data, uh, you have to be prepared to show them why they have to make a special investment into Poland, into NGOs and civil societies and society organizations in Poland, because there is a process. Look, here's an epidemiologic process. Here's the trouble. We can show it this way, this way, this way, this way. Yeah, it's important, it's big, big. Okay, then the representative for the donor organization is buying a ticket and going to Warsaw. So that's how it works, right? But it always starts with data anyway. So one of the main things, of course, we should discuss, and I also liked how my colleague Christoph was doing, like what not to do. What to avoid when you are working on that. Of course, the main, and he also was saying that in his webinar, um, you have to double check. You have to double check many, many times. Never, never, ever use inaccurate or in unreliable data. You will get in a very bad problems, and you always have to check many times what are the sources, what are the numbers, uh, and if you are not, let's say, if there's not enough capacity of yourself, also, um, for me, always was a great thing to go and work with the other universities, with the scientists, because they need us, we need them. So it's always a very good cooperation between the sectors, right? Because they need data, they need science, and we need science, and we need data for our advocacy purposes. So go and work together with them. I'm not a specialist in mental health at all, being honest, without the, like, I see the trouble, I know what the kind of change I want, but then I need help, and then I come to this John Hopkins University saying, hey guys, look, that's what we have, don't you want to join us? And then you cooperate. Always obey ethical rules. Don't know even what to more say about that. um Again and again and again. We don't have a lot of resources, and honestly, the space. I hate that phrase. The space for civil society is shrinking, but the space, the funding, everything is shrinking. Um, Always, it's a pity when people are, for example, making stigma index, which costs usually like 80K. And then they don't have any resources for advocacy. Then just the report of stigma index goes inside the shelf, inside your table. Everyone forgets about it, and that's it. So if you don't have any other capacity, further to advocate, like, do smaller, like research, use the data exactly as people who have data, right, about the in COBATEST, use the data you already have, showing that okay, we can see HIV is growing in this and this and this population. What we're gonna do? Here are the interventions which is possible to implement. Give us money and give us political support, you know, and we will fix that. So be very concrete, right? Not to try to collect the data about everything and improve everything at the same time. It's not possible. It doesn't work like that. Don't ignore your audience priorities. Well, this is obvious, but again and again, it's worth saying it again. So for government, it will be the one argument, you know, about the urgency, about, you know, public needs, about whatever. In many cases, it will be about that will give for them personally as a political advantage, let's say. This kind of change. For donors, it will be mostly about the cost and cost effectiveness. Well, for governments also, cost effectiveness is, you know, like, yeah, this investment will bring you the change, and it's cheaper rather than, you know, the way you've been doing that previously. So kinds of, you know, always bring, what I'm trying to say, always make your argument based on the priorities and know your audience. And also do not use data without clear narrative. In the beginning of my, you know, advocacy career, I was so proud of making all that graphics. And I was thinking that if I just show the slide with the graphics, everyone will be so impressed, the same as I was, you know. And no, it doesn't work like that. You have to build a very good narrative around that. You have to bring also people's stories. You have to go through the whole, you know, um, you're telling the story. It's this kind of storytelling, right? It's not only about the numbers. People don't remember the numbers. People do have emotional feedback, right? This is also quite important. And also thinking that just showing the graph and then everyone will understand, you know, what this graph. No, you have to understand, you know, to describe what it is about. And you always have also, you know, you are saying like 100 people, 100,000 people are, I don't know, experiencing troubles with getting free testing. Comparing to what, you know, what is the size of the problem? Like you have to always refer that, you know, and show the size. Tell your story. Uh, so again, what can be, what is important? Ask the right questions. Yeah. What exact change you want? You want to save lives, or you want people to stop? Remember this defibrillation machines example, right? Or you want people to stop that? Of you can reach what you can reach. There are always goals which are big, and towards which we need to go. Yeah, but there's also some small steps. You know what you can reach now. Like be very, you know, strategic. Building of the advocacy is quite you know, but also look at the data the same. Use good data, double check. Do not use anything. Oh, what happened? You're not 100% sure. When you also clearly illustrate the problem and also clearly illustrate the solution. So it's very important for, you know, just to show the other stories as well, you know, of the success, for example. It can be that you already have great interventions which are reaching the populations to whom you want to make the things better. But it also can be the interventions from the other countries. That's the whole idea of bringing the best practices and bringing the best examples. So you're showing like, here's the problem, here's what the possible solutions are. You're making, if you can, some calculations, how it will work, and then you make a suggestion. So I'm just trying to say, don't leave it as a, you know, everything is bad, here's the graph. Goodbye. No one will do that work instead of you. You have to do all of that, yeah, with your audience. You have to show why this problem, the size of the problem, the consequence if we are not solving that, and the best practices of solutions, and then what will be the advantages and the benefits of solving that. So you have to show it quite a picture. Uh, yeah. Mm, yeah, and of course, and once again and again, ethics, and be transparent and honest, and acknowledge the limitations. For example, we have data around trans persons are in stigma index. Usually, it's very small numbers in stigma index. So. Um, do not put them into percentages, like when you're speaking about 8 people, don't put them into percentages. Yeah, you'd better describe the situation other ways. All right, always accept that you have data limitations. When you are talking about the correlations, you'd better talk not in a such a like direct way. Yeah, you'd better say like is associated with or may contribute to. So you are making an assumptions, right? Rather than you're presenting your data as a, especially in the case as a last truth, especially in the cases when it really is not like that, right? Because the data and its interpretation. And usually when you're collecting data, there are some limitations, right? So yeah, I think I just really wanted to have some kind of questions. I think that's it from my side. We already talked about the all the rest. Yeah, once again, maybe data is for me is the starting point of everything. I also think that the power, the communities, themselves, and the people, from civil society collecting the data is that when we're collecting the data, we're usually getting very worried, sometimes very angry, and this is a fuel for advocacy, honestly. So, um, mm, not saying that we have to act on that, but the kind of the energy, this ownership of data, because when you're just reading the data which is collected by somebody else, by some scientific institutions, it's a bit different feeling rather than um, you have collected that yourself. You've been looking into the eyes of the people who were experiencing stigma and discrimination, who were denied in treatment, then you have the other feeling. And then the way you will work for your change, it's pretty different, right? So it's also, I see quite a added value of us making the data collection by ourselves. All right, not saying that we I love to work with the universities. They're so smart and so cool. Yeah, I think that's it from my side.